FBI says this began as a peaceful event on Sunday. A group of people in Boulder had been marching at a pedestrian mall calling for the release of Israeli hostages in Gaza. Then police say 45-year-old Mohammed Sabri Soliman from El Paso set people on fire with that makeshift flamethrower. Video shows the smoke and people screaming. Authorities say 8 people were hurt, 4 women and 4 men between the ages of 52 and 88.
Witnesses are reporting that the subject used a makeshift flamethrower and threw an incendiary device into the crowd. The suspect was heard to yell, "Free Palestine," during the attack. As a result of these preliminary facts, it is clear that this is a targeted act of violence, and the FBI is investigating this as an act of terrorism.
DHS and ICE sources tell our Bill Malujan Soliman entered the U.S. in August 2022 with a non-immigrant visa. He was authorized to stay until February 2023, but he never left. On March 2023, he was given a work authorization visa under the Biden administration that was valid until just this past March. Reaction is now pouring in. Colorado Governor Jared Polis says hate is unacceptable in our Colorado for all, and I condemned this act of terror. House Speaker Mike Johnson posted on X, terrorist sympathizers have made it clear they will do anything to try and silence the Jewish people and those who support Israel. We cannot and will not let them win. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer weighed in too, adding, anti-Semitism, plain and simple, has no place in America. I am praying for the victims' recovery and am in touch with the FBI as we closely monitor the situation. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says this: the anti-Semitic attacks around the world are a direct result of blood libels against the Jewish state and people, and this must be stopped. This has increased fears among the Jewish community. The NYPD, for instance, is increasing security around New York City's religious sites because of the attack.
This land is my land. This land is not your land. I will stay in my land and you can stay in Thailand. Go back to Egypt. Go back to where you belong. This land was not made for you. It was made for me. This land is my land. This land is not yours.
Good morning and a happy morning to you. It is Monday, June 2nd to 2025. Man, May just flew freaking by. Whew, it is the start of Pride Month, and, well, things have changed. Let me just tell you. Culture is changing in neck-snapping, Jeffrey Epstein level neck-snapping form. We are going to talk all about it on the show today, along with the new terror in our country, something that we have been predicting for a very long time. There is a spate of criminal, alien, migrant terror that is gripping the nation, and it's something that must stop. Thankfully, we have an administration that's very serious about it, and that administration is going to be joining our show. Corey Lewandowski from DHS will be joining the program today to answer for what we are going to do about the criminal alien terrorists that Joe Biden allowed into our nation. Also, Dr. Jared Sadulski and Ali Hooper will join the program to talk about where these criminal aliens are coming from and, more importantly, who is funding them. It's time for us to really take the guillotine to the paths to get into our country, because it's not free and it's well-defined, and it's a structure that deserves to be burned to the ground. Democrat congressman office raided by ICE. We're starting to sense a pattern here, and we're going to talk about it again on today's show. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Is the dollar safe as the world's reserve currency? Acting former IMF chief economist Kenneth Rogoff says maybe not. Ladies and gentlemen, his new book, Our Dollar, Your Problem, reveals how rising debt, inflation, and dollar deglobalization could potentially lead to a blowout currency crisis. Your retirement accounts could be at risk. This is why Advantage Gold is giving away free copies of this urgent book. And, ladies and gentlemen, if you schedule a one-on-one precious metals appointment today, That copy can be yours. Text Benny to 85545 today, and you'll learn how to legally move your IRA or 401k into physical gold and silver, avoid taxes and penalties using a little-known IRS loophole, and how to receive $10,000 in free gold and silver if you qualify. Protect your retirement today before it's too late. Text Benny to 85545, Benny to 85545, or visit AdvantageGold.com to claim your free copy. No cost, just the truth. All right, speaking of just the truth, here is what we found yesterday. We went on a deep dive. You may recall that through the early histories of the aughts, that Pride Month became a thing. We're technically in Pride Month right now, although you'd barely know it. It used to be a proverbial vomit of transgender and rainbow flags in all of our faces, brought to us by corporate America. Corporate America would shove this stuff down our throats because they realized that if they were graduating a bunch of women with worthless degrees from Ivy League schools, they could shove them into HR departments and force this kind of stuff. It's called corporate propaganda. It's the highest form of tyranny. These are simply companies. These are not political vessels, but they were turned into political vessels by Barack Obama. This was the Marxist march through capitalism. And they realized, wait a second, well, if society rejects what we believe, if society rejects radical, gender-bending, and extreme, sadistic paganism, then you know what we could do? We could just infect the boardrooms of America's companies, and we could shove it down the throat, except for in the Middle East, of course. unless it's our Middle East brands. Then we need to sell Mercedes and BMWs, okay, to sultans. Let's say they're little princelings that are going to need to invest in our company and are going to need to buy Mercedes. So we'll make sure that we don't change our logos there. But everywhere else in the Western world, we're going to ensure that every logo and everything is... And this, ladies and gentlemen, is just one small sign that we are winning the culture war bigly. Here is a graphic that we put together that went thermonuclear viral. Of course, we didn't watermark it, which is insane, but we spoke with Jack this morning, and we're going to change that. This is the graphic that we put together yesterday. Not this one, Klein, please, the other one. This is 2024 versus 2025. It's like finding a needle in a haystack to find a corporate brand that changed their logo to the rainbow flag this year. Go try and find one. What's crazy is that the only real like cucked and like deeply progressive industry seems to be the sports industry, shockingly. So like the industry that should be raging with testosterone and brutality and let's just go like play football. Like there's a ton of sports teams and entire leagues, MLB for instance, that has changed their logos, right, to the rainbow flag. Now, this is not what the show is about, so this is gonna blend really nicely. ALX, make sure that you grab please make sure that you grab the tweet that we had that went viral yesterday of the picture of the Democrat Party. There's a reason why this is important, other than just like pointing and saying, haha. When you are losing in culture, you can no longer project power. This was always a projection of power, saying that America's Fortune 500 companies will do as we say. This didn't bring in any customers. No new customers came to these companies because of this activism. In fact, in many cases, whether it's Bud Light or whether it's Target or whether it's Tractor Supply, these companies collapsed actually under the weight of progressive activism. It's terrible for business, horrible for business, and on both sides. And I just want to ring clear as a bell here because again, we're probably going to see some real humiliation throughout Pride Month here. There's going to be companies that are going to be browbeat. I mean, look at this, even Vogue, Hollywood Studios, Apple, American Airlines, Hewlett-Packard, and so on, have refused to change their logo, have refused to bend the knee. We didn't even add Bud Light in there, but I bet we could find that one. Yeah, and here's the humiliating MLB. What this is a cultural battlefield. This is a stake in the ground. This is a call for sanity. as we have often argued on this channel for years now, we went berserker mode during, of course, the Bud Light boycott. As we have argued on this channel for years, the problem here is that these are our brands. This is bad for business. I think it'd be hilarious if Bud Light did a Donald Trump can. It'd be a genius move if Bud Light put Donald Trump's mugshot on an official Bud Light can. But they would never do that. They put Dylan Mulvaney's instead. What is that? That's a show of cultural power. That's saying we know this is going to hurt our bottom line. This is going to hurt our investors. It's going to hurt our product. We're going to lose a third of our customers, which they have. Bud Light has lost a third of their customers. Let me know in the chat. Have you drank Bud Light since the boycott? Like, let me know in the chat. And can you pop up some of the comments? Have you drank any Bud Light? I have. My lips have nary touched Bud Light since the boycott. And we were sitting there ringside at UFC with the CEO of Bud Light, who's also a CIA agent. Just happens to be the case. Didn't talk too much about that, but the reality is that I am part of the 30% that will never ever touch the stuff. I mean, I don't really, frankly, drink at all anyway, period. It's just not good business. Hangovers are terrible with little kids or if you're running a company. And just period, just doesn't matter. Working at a toll booth, hangover's terrible. The point is that this is cultural power. Nobody wants to see these brands that we all enjoy that should be brands to gain the greatest and widest audience. You want the most people shopping at Target. Man, this is a good side-by-side. Klein, I hope you're loading that up. Show me Target last year versus this year, because we're going to go to a local Target. ALX, grab my reporting last year from Target. Target last year versus this year. It was like a full-scale, Target last year was a full-scale groomer explosion. I've never seen anything like it. In the children's section, you're talking like transgender onesies for babies. They're talking designs by Satanists, not by what we think is a Satanist, what is an avowed Satanist putting pentagrams and goat's heads on children's clothing inside of Target. I had to go see it with my own eyes. Here we go. I had to go see it with my own eyes. Walking in to Target, I couldn't believe it. This was the result. This is the end state. This doesn't bring in any new customers. This destroys Target's bottom line, and Target, of course, collapsed. But you can see here, look at the children's onesies, the children's clothing. You're talking like T1, toddler up to the age of 1. We got leaks from inside of the Target training programs pushing this kind of stuff. Crazy. What's the point? The point is that all of politics is an execution of cultural power. Who has winning ideas and who has losing ideas. Someone in the battlefield, there's no such thing as a stalemate. Someone's winning and someone's losing. When there's an official stalemate, the battle is just pretty much over. It's just over, right? There's a stalemate in the Korean War, Peninsula. Stalemate's good. This is the one that I want right there. Yep, that one. That's what I saw going in my local Target here in Florida. So how bad is it in New York or San Francisco? Here in Florida. Look at that. You have naked, I couldn't believe it. They're selling shirts in the children's section with naked adults on them. The graphics are of nude adults with sexual organs displayed in the children's section of Target. Here's what Target looks like this year, according to reports. And we're going to go check this out today. People are reporting that their Targets, the official Target groomer sections, are now full-on 4th of July displays. That's called cultural victory. You should not sexualize children, and if you can't agree with me on that point, then we have nothing in common. You should not use your airline brand or your commercial air conditioner company to push far-left, progressive, secular, and pagan ideologies, extreme radical left ideologies. as stated, I would not be cheering from the rooftops if American Airlines decided to change their entire logo to like Trump's face. I think that's just straight up bad for business. They'd lose maybe half their customers. I think it'd be funny, but that's just me. I'm arguing for rationality here, which is brands, whether it's Hollywood trying to sell you a movie ticket, or whether it's Target trying to sell you a doily, right? Or knick-knack, some cheap piece of plastic crap from China. Or whether it's an airline, these brands are for all of us. We are all their customers. So they should do their very level-headed best to say the F out of politics, especially divisive, radical, extremist politics, like transing the children. This is just a no-brainer. The projection of this stuff, this is the final thing I'll say on this, the projection of this toxic ideology was a show of cultural force. What do we know about the Satanist? And there was a literal, can you bring up the article? There was a literal Satanist designing children's clothing at Target last year. A literal Satanist. Not like we assume that, but they're trying to hide it. It's like they're out and out with it. Target's paying a literal Satanist to design children's clothing. Like at what point, here we go. Target partners with Satanist brand for Pride collection. Live, laugh, lesbian. Got it. At what point do you like draw the line? At what point? And this might, funny how there's multiple examples here. This is not the example I'm thinking of. ALX knows exactly the example I'm thinking of. I'm sure it's in the chat, Klein. Okay, thank you. This is a humiliation ritual and the erosion of culture as we know it in this country. At some point, if the country has any future, you must draw the line and lock it down and say you are not going to go beyond this line. We're going to talk about this today as it relates to terror attacks by criminal aliens, as it relates to attacking our children with sick transgender ideology. There it is, ALX. Great. Hey, producers, can you find me this article? Thank you. This is like when we talked about like ad nauseum, but this is the Satanist designer. There you go. Satan respects pronouns. Here he is wearing a Satan respects pronouns shirt. This guy, Target said, this guy wearing a Baphomet with a transgender logo on its skull, and a Satan respects pronouns, a goat's head, a goat's skull, wearing goat horns, who is an avid Satanist, according to all of his social media and his company's profile. Target said, that's the guy. That's the guy. Let's let him design our children's clothing. Again, there's not a single person at Target that thought that was a good idea. It was a projection of cultural power from the left, and we must eradicate it. We must take that power back. All right. Yeah, there we go. Trans designer in Target anti-LGBT backlash. Look at that. Look at that. It's the backlash. Look at how it's framed there. Isn't it beautiful? It's just like how they framed the terrorist attack as a white male. White male engages in terrorist attack in Boulder, Colorado. Trans designer whose Satanist brand was pulled from Target sees orders surge. Oh, good. Good for them. I'd love to be nice to check in these days and see, but this is what we are fighting. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us very nicely to the Democrats continuing this ideology. And this image from yesterday. This is an image from Boulder, Colorado, where a criminal alien terrorist who had just lit people on fire stood in front of a transgender flag and barked, "Palestine will be free," in a perfect encapsulation of the modern Democrat Party. This is everything that they stand for. This is only possible because of a disease in our country. Cognitive dissonance. Psychologically, cognitive dissonance is holding two competing thoughts in your mind at the same time that contradict each other, but you're holding them both concussively. Look at this. You have a radicalized Muslim terrorist standing in front of a trans flag, shooting a flamethrower at Jewish activists that are simply saying, we want terrorists, we want hostages released from prison, held by terrorists. How do you reconcile this? What is this pathology? How can you argue? You can't. No rationalizing, no reasoning in the world can make sense of this. But the left supports all of it, and more importantly, the left will support it when a Democrat district judge in Colorado bans the Trump administration from deporting this criminal alien murderer who has now been charged with 12 counts of murder, arson, incendiary devices, and so on. This is incompatible with the West. Do you see the end stage result here? This is incompatibility with Western civilization. That's what this photo is. This is the guaranteed end result of cognitive dissonance that the left constantly brings to the table. We are so excited that Joe Biden chose a black woman as vice president, a black woman on the Supreme Court. What's a woman? Shut up! That's cognitive dissonance. There it is, right there. This photo is the perfect example, because that man right there that the left is supporting and defending, and that flag that they would call a hate crime if you touched it, he's like one step away from lighting that flag on fire. I guarantee you, he doesn't support that flag. Nothing in this photo makes sense. What's next is he's going to set that flag on fire. And then the left-wing brain is going to explode because they don't know how to, but that's his culture. He's a cultural enricher. Diversity is our strength. These are his beliefs. He's a native to his land, and he's just bringing his native philosophy here, but he's burning a transgender flag. This is the insanity that is run like a cancer through the left, and it's terminal. There's no getting out of it. The party needs to be burned to the ground. It is horrible for the American people. Here's a video of the attacker, ladies and gentlemen. This is an attack perpetrated by a criminal alien named Mohammed Salamni. Sure. You can turn up just a little bit.
We're here.
You can see the ground is on fire here.
We can't do nothing.
The setup, you can see the flames there. He used a flamethrower device to burn little old ladies who ranged in age 55 to 88 who were peacefully protesting for the release of hostages from Hamas. That's what they were protesting. By the way, in left-wing Colorado, those women are in a deep minority and are simply saying that hostages need to be released by terrorists. And they were lit on fire by Muhammad. Muhammad entered the country legally, has overstayed his visa 3 times, and the Biden administration, after he criminally remained in the nation, gave him a work permit. Said not only can you stay here to build your flamethrowers and burn Americans alive while screaming Free Palestine, but you get the red carpet. We're going to make sure you can do it permanently. And were it not for the 2024 election result, there would be so many more Mohammeds already on their way to this country. How many more are here in this nation already. So we'll speak to Corey Lewandowski about in just a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, this has all been confirmed through Fox News and multiple other reports that he has overstayed his visa and is, again, in this nation illegally. So where's the reconciling on the left? Like, at what point do they apologize? How can you possibly live with this ideology? This cognitive dissonance? How can you do it? Do you just ignore it? I mean, at some point, you're just going to have to ignore these things. You're going to have to ignore the results of the horrors that you brought to this nation. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Miller on this. I just want to touch really quickly on Stephen Miller. Terror attack was committed in Boulder, Colorado by an illegal alien. He was granted a tourist visa by the Biden administration. Great. Fantastic. Let's just take people named Muhammad who have a penchant for terrorism. We know that thousands on the terrorist watch list have entered this country. Let's give him a tourist visa. Nothing bad can possibly happen. The administration then illegally overstayed his visa. In response, the Biden administration rewarded him by giving him a work permit. Suicidal migration must be fully reversed. Is the acting ICE director this morning, Todd Lyons, explaining what ICE is going to do now.
We know that he was here. He was told to leave. He was given a work authorization, but that expired. He overstayed that. How many people do you know of have overstayed their visas? And is there an push, I imagine, by you at ICE and across the administration to try to find them and get them out before any other things like this happen? Not that all of those people would commit these kinds of crimes, not at all. But something like this makes you wonder, like, if he hadn't been here, those people wouldn't have been attacked.
Right. Thanks, Dana. Well, I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, for sure. There's a big push right now on ICE to go ahead and identify all these individuals that have overstayed their visas. We have millions that have come in, all across the last administration that have overstayed their visas and overstayed their welcome. And one of the main missions of ICE is to go ahead and arrest anyone that we can take an enforcement action on that has violated immigration law. And violating their visa and violating that commitment to leave on time is one of those enforcement actions. And we're focused on that. And like your point, we want to go ahead and we make sure we take these bad actors out of the country before anything like this could happen. Because under the last administration, the screening just wasn't there. We don't have the intent of what a lot of these people came for. While many may have came for the American dream, a lot have come here to commit crime, commit terrorist acts, or just not be the person that we want in our neighborhood. So ICE is focused on finding these individuals and removing them quickly.
Ladies and gentlemen, in just a moment, Corey Lewandowski joins the program from DHS with a major update here. I just want to pin one final thing down on all of this. We must use, it's as dark as it is, we must use this as a warning sign from God as to what is about to happen. There is going to be a much worse attack. I'm not a doomslayer. I'm not a black pillar. What Joe Biden did is going to lead to a much worse attack than this. There are teams that are highly coordinated and sophisticated, that are splinter cells, black ops groups, and sleeper cells that are here to commit far greater atrocities than this. And this is an atrocity, and we pray for the victims. We don't know the status of all 8 victims, who some of them have horrific, horrific burns. Skin melting off, unrecognizable. We pray for them. They're in hospital right now. We're waiting on an update. It's got to get worse. Something has to be done now. It's life or death. And somebody in Colorado's family just went, somebody's grandmother in Colorado just went to go protest on not even protest, to just go say something that everyone agrees with, right? Release the hostages, terrorists. And their grandmother may never come back because of Joe Biden's policies, because of the Democrats' continuance policies here. It's the banality of evil. We have to change it, and we have to do something now. This is a call to action. Stephen Miller this week, like setting the table, ladies and gentlemen, for how we must talk about this issue, how we must change culture, just like with the Pride Progress logos, Bud Light, Target. We have the power. We are the majority in this country. I have a map to prove it. And so now the work begins. Here's Stephen Miller starting that work on CNN.
Undocumented migrant sent a letter threatening to kill the president, promising to self-deport after the assassination. CNN reporting shows that investigators believe the migrant was set up. It was a victim of a setup. What is the administration going to do now? And this is an undocumented immigrant. I do want to note that, but this was someone who came forward, was a victim of a crime, and now law enforcement believes he was set up. Go ahead.
Well, I want to clarify what you mean, so we're talking about the same thing. Are you saying this immigrant was here illegally?
Yes, but I am, and that's why I said that. I clarified that.
You said undocumented, and I wasn't clear what that means. I'm assuming they have a fake ID. I'm assuming they have a fake social security number.
That's neither here nor there. That's getting away from the question,
country.
Stephen. I want this to be, and call me naive, a good faith discussion about what's happening right now.
But when we use language that's designed to obscure the truth, that's not good faith.
All right,
an illegal alien is an illegal alien. They're not an undocumented migrant.
Okay, that's fine. That's another discussion for another day.
I don't know the details of the assassination threat. All I can say, based on what you're telling me, is there's an illegal alien in our country who's making menacing threats. Regardless of the facts or circumstances, we don't want him here. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and I would gladly come back on when I have more information to share with you.
They were set up, just to be clear. But quickly, where is the White House on habeas corpus?
The illegal alien was treated unfairly. Yes, I'm sure the illegal alien was treated very unfairly.
Where?
This is how you punch back. Somebody who knows quite a bit about punching back is the great Corey Lewandowski, special government employee and Trump senior advisor, who joins the program live right now. Corey, thanks for being on. This is a pretty dark day, and I just wanted to start by saying, do you have any new information for us on this terrorist attack brought about by Joe Biden's criminal regime and open border?
Benny, what I can tell you is that this is just another example of a person who is in this country and has overstayed their visa, who are committing crimes against Americans because of the policies of the left. And what we have seen are excuses on the left that this person came in legally on a B1, B2 visa and then was given a work permit and was a good person by all accounts until they lit an American citizen on fire. So, it's amazing that this person was a great person under all the accounts on the left until they go start attacking people who are out peacefully talking about the fact that they want to see hostages released. So once again, the left is blaming everybody but themselves for the policies of the previous 4 years because they know that they're on the wrong side. And by the way, Benny, why the hell doesn't the guy have a shirt on? I don't even understand this thing. Like, he's not exactly a good-looking, ripped-up guy. I mean, this guy's a complete lunatic, so go put a shirt on. But here's what I don't understand. At what point? Last week, we had a horrific killing in Washington, D.C. by a very young couple. And then I flew to Israel, Benny, and I met the family of one of those two victims. It was devastating. I had the chance to go and sit down and listen to their story. And it was so sad. You know what the family said? They were afraid to come back to Israel because of what has been taking place over there. They thought they were safe in Washington, D.C. And then these two young kids who were about to get married, get engaged in Israel, were gunned down like dogs by a lunatic and someone who should never have had the opportunity to do that. And what do we see this week? The same kind of thing. When you stand up for Israel, you are targeted, and we must do better as a nation.
So we know that thousands of known terrorists on the terrorist watch list flooded the country in waves over the last 4 years. What's the status report on that? How do we ratchet up these deportations?
Look, Benny, we can't get enough people deported out fast enough. What we've known is that we have sent out hundreds of people who the Biden administration had let in that's on what's called a KST list, or a known suspected terrorist list. Those people are being scooped up as quickly as possible. But the reality is, yes, they are the highest priority. But some say we've got 20 million people in this country illegally. That is just a massive amount of resources that are needed to go and find these people, to apprehend them, to house them and then to put them on airplanes and send them out, particularly when we've got liberal judges like in Massachusetts that are precluding us from sending people back to their home countries. And a great example of that is this lunatic individual who's an alleged MS-13 gang member from El Salvador, who they said, hey, don't deport back to El Salvador, even though he's an El Salvadorian resident, because he was fearful being a rival gang member. Well, look, there are no more gangs in El Salvador. What President Bukele has done down there has ridded that country of gangs. So now we should be able to deport these people. But what have these judges done? They've stepped in and said, no, these people have rights. They've come into our country illegally. They perpetrated crimes against Americans. And these leftist liberal judges are allowing these people standing up for the criminals as opposed to the American citizens. It's disgusting to me.
So there was a well-reported phone call last week that some key members of Team Trump, and I believe you were on that list, Stephen Miller also, were meeting with the heads of ICE and Border Patrol in order to ratchet up the deportations from 1,000 a day to 3,000 per day. How's that operation going?
Benny, listen, I will tell you this. Secretary Noam, Stephen Miller, our entire team is singularly focused on one thing. It started with first sealing the border through the Customs and Border Patrol agents. They have done a phenomenal job, about 99.8% reduction of border crossings. There's still onesies and twosies here and there, but nothing like what we saw during the Biden administration. So what are we doing now? We have implemented a whole of government approach, which is driving the liberals crazy. Just last week in Martha's Vineyard, we used the Coast Guard to go and transport illegals that we picked up back to the mainland so that we can house them and then ultimately deport them. So Stephen Miller, Secretary Noam, what they've said is we want 3,000 arrests a day and 3,000 deportations a day. To put that in perspective, that is larger than any program that we have ever run as a nation, but we have the full support of the President of the United States, the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the Attorney General, the White House. Everybody is on board because they know that this is something that will fundamentally and radically change the direction of our country if we don't get these people out of our country. So for the first time in our nation's history, this entire federal government is working together to apprehend, house, and then deport these bad guys as quickly as possible. It's ramping up. Last week, we hit 2,000 arrests in a single day. We're sending them out on buses. We're sending them out on airplanes. We are following the rules, but these judges are killing us. They're stopping us from deporting these criminals back to their home countries because they say they have rights, which they don't actually have.
So speaking of rights, speaking of rights under attack, there's this video that went viral last week, since you mentioned Martha's Vineyard, and you know this part of the world quite well, Corey, of an elderly boomer lib lady saying that she's worried she's going to be deported next. And here's the video. She looks like she's lived in Martha's Vineyard for her entire life. Her family's probably been in America for 200 years. And she says, couldn't I be deported next? My question is, where would you deport her exactly?
Well, here's the thing, Benny. We don't deport American citizens. It's very simple. If you are an American citizen, this is your home. You don't get deported. I don't care if you've been in the country illegally for 1 day, 1 week, a year, 20 years, or 50 years. We're going to find you and we're going to send you out. So do yourself a favor. Self-deport. Go on what used to be called the CBP One app, now called the CBP Go Home app, and get the hell out of the country. Because if we find you, you're not coming back. And let me tell you something. We have empowered our ICE agents, our HSI agents, the entire whole of government task force, including in Florida, the National Guard, to go out and effectuate arrests, to do Title 8 detentions. And if we asked you if you have proof that you are a U.S. citizen and you don't, we will detain you and we will send you out of this country. So you know what? These people on Martha's Vineyard, what I used to call the beautiful people, the John Kerrys of the world, right, who only came to this country with 2 tons of gold, or in John's case, he married 2 tons of gold, right? That's what he did. So look, if you're an American citizen, you don't go anywhere. But if you're in the country illegally, get out because we will find you. I don't care if you own a landscaping company. I don't care if you own a construction company. Look what happened in Tallahassee last week. We started doing workforce enforcement raids, and people were scattering like they were ants. You know why? Because we're going to find you, and you do not belong in this country. And one crime committed against an American citizen by an illegal is one too many.
What do you say to the construction site owners and the companies that benefit off of exploitative labor, which is what this is? It's just low-key slavery. It's human smuggling and trafficking. It's engaging in human trafficking is what it is. What do you say to the companies there that like are so upset about the ICE raid in Tallahassee?
I say you should have hired Americans. Okay, that's how it works. You should have gone and checked the I-9 status of these people. Okay, the John Smiths of the world want to do work too, right? The Billy Johns of the world want to do the work too. So give people the opportunity. Look, when we have a level playing field, Benny, Americans can compete with anybody. But what happens is these employers want to hire people because they can get them at a reduced wage. They know that they're not going to stay very long. They know they can hold them under their thumb by making them work hours they shouldn't or are in conditions that they shouldn't be. So go hire Americans and you won't have these problems. If you continue to hire illegals, whether you are a landscape company, a construction company, or anything in between, we will find you. We will be checking these things, and we're going to be holding you accountable as well.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, you have to go after the businesses that are keeping Mohammed employed, right? Like, so, who's allowed, so cut off all of the people who've overstayed their visas. This seems like pretty obvious. And then go after the businesses that keep paying them. And it seems like a pretty easy way. And if they can't get welfare, then that seems like a pretty easy way to cut the entire system off, right? Am I wrong about that, Corey?
You're not wrong. The problem is the businesses have, by and large, been on a path, right? That they're never held accountable. So once you start holding those business owners accountable and you start finding them and holding them responsible for what they're doing, which is allowing illegals to work in their business. Look, Benny, the reality is every person knows if the person working for them is illegal or not. Now, they want to turn a blind eye to it because they think it's cheaper labor and better. And then they want to call, the Department of Homeland Security and say, well, this guy here, Juan, is a great guy and he shouldn't be deported. Hey, nobody gets a pass. And Benny, I'll tell you this. We have fielded dozens, if not hundreds of calls from members of Congress who are supposed to be conservatives or members of the U.S. Senate who are conservatives who say, hey, the guy who cuts my grass is a great guy. Can you just look the other way? You know what the answer is? Absolutely not. We're coming for everybody. Workforce enforcement. We're going to stop at places. Look, you pull up at a Home Depot in Florida and there's 1,000 guys standing outside looking to do day work. I'll tell you what, ICE, go find them. Go scoop them up, go pick them up and get them out of the country because only one of those guys does it take to get behind the wheel drunk and kill an American citizen who shouldn't have been here.
Yep, that's exactly right. You're seeing, of course, this logic used time and time again in the arrest of judges in New Mexico, for instance. He had Tren de Aragua members living with him. Is this correct? In New Mexico? This former Democrat judge? And his rationale was he's great at yard work. It's amazing. You'd think you were telling a joke, Corey, but you're not. That's the Democrat judge that was arrested said, I have the gang members with the teardrop tattoos and everything living with me because they're great at leaf blowing and cleaning my pool.
It's amazing. It just goes to show. Look, and it wasn't just New Mexico, unfortunately. It was also that judge in Minnesota, right? So you get the same thing. They think that they're doing a service and that they're holier than thou, that they don't have to follow the rules. So you know what happens? You start arresting these people, and I give immense amount of credit to Kash Patel and the FBI for going in and enforcing the rules that they're supposed to have, the rule of law, which every other American has to follow. If that were me or you, we'd be going to jail. But these guys allow Tren de Aragua, 18th Street gang members, right, to sit in their homes and to clean their yards and then to pay them in cash because it's easier for them and cheaper for them than going out and hiring an American. And what they say is, well, Americans don't want to do these jobs. I don't believe it. When you give them a level playing field, Americans will not only do the jobs, they will do it with exceptionalism and with integrity and honor. And so let's make the people who are following the rules, let's give them the opportunity to be successful. And those judges that aren't following the rules, I love the fact we went to arrest them. And I love the fact that we're going to keep holding them accountable.
What's going to happen to Mohammed? So we have his mugshot now. It looks like his face is half burned off. Here we go. What's going to happen to Mohammed? What's next, Corey?
So, the FBI has defined this as a domestic terrorism incident, which it absolutely is. And I agree with that 100%. So ICE has placed a detainer on this individual, meaning he will have his day in court in Colorado. And as you know, Benny, basically a sanctuary state. They don't want to even adhere to ICE detainers. So what you have seen and what your viewers have seen now, plainclothes ICE officers waiting in the courtroom so that when these liberal judges say you are free to go, we scoop you up right away. What would be much safer for our judges and for these individuals is they allow the ICE individuals to go into the jail where the person is secured in a safe facility, put the handcuffs on them, and then move them to a deportation status. But because these liberal judges and these sanctuary cities don't allow that, we have to have our resources standing in the courtroom. So when the judge will probably release this guy on some nominal bail, $5,000, $10,000, something simple, because these judges are so left-leaning that this guy will walk out the door. And if we weren't there, He'd be a free man. We'd never see him again.
So you're telling me that, and we have footage of this actually happening right now, the plainclothes ICE officers arresting criminal aliens inside of courthouses, something that you have to resort to in sanctuary cities. Yeah, that's right. Exactly right here. This is exactly what Corey's talking about. So you're telling me that you expect, DHS expects that judges will be lenient on this Muslim terrorist that just burned Americans alive?
Well, you know, Benny, I only say that if history is any indication of what's going to happen in the future, right? We've seen it time and time again. Let me give you an example. There was a story about 7 years ago. There was a beautiful young girl in Iowa whose name was Sarah Root. She was killed by an illegal drunk driver who spent 3 hours in jail. He left and absconded back to his home country of Honduras. And only because of the support and persistence of Senator Joni Ernst did this administration, the Trump administration through Secretary Noem, go and grab that individual in Honduras 7 years later and bring that person back to be held accountable for the murder of that young, beautiful girl. So these judges let these criminals off all the time. And they say, well, it's only one little crime that they committed. No, it's multiple crimes. The first one was coming into the country illegally many times on numerous occasions. And then this one is a much more serious crime. So imperative for us to make sure that our resources are in the right location. So as soon as these leftist liberal judges decide that these people shouldn't be behind bars, we will put handcuffs on them. We'll put them in a facility that will not be as conducive as the one that they probably would have had in the Colorado County system. We will house them, and then we will deport them back to the country that they're from.
Is there going to be a major focus on visa overstays now, Corey, based on this attack? This terror attack?
There has to be. And look, USCIS has now been empowered to go and look at all of these to make sure that anybody who's overstaying their visa, we're prioritizing to get them out of the country. But here's the other thing, Benny. Part of our problem is the way the law is written is, unfortunately, if you can say you've been in this country for longer than 2 years, a mere 2 years, we now have to go through this entire process of adjudication to get you out of the country. I say we go back 20 years, okay? You pick a definitive date, January 1st, 2019, 2015, 2005. I don't care, 1919. I don't care what it is. If you came into the country illegally, you should be adjudicated immediately and sent out of this country. And so what has happened is the left has cared more about these criminals than they have American citizens. The American sentiment and people are with the Trump administration of getting these people out, the worst of the worst, the gang members. But these leftist liberal judges continue to impose their own will on the American people and just completely disregard the 77 million Americans who voted for Donald Trump to get this country to be safe again.
Really quickly, do you think that Mohammed should be facing civil rights charges on a federal level, should face potentially capital punishment on a federal level for this? I mean, we don't have any faith in Colorado working here. Tina Peters, of course, is still in jail in Colorado. Tina Peters will get a more severe sentence than Mohammed, we assume. But do you think that there's federal charges that can be brought here, Corey?
You know, I think so. And from what I've heard, the Department of Justice is pursuing attempted murder or murder charges in 8 different cases. Now, no one has actually died yet, but is one of the pieces that they are pursuing. Look, you have to make an example of these people. And Benny, listen, I'm a guy, and I know, someone asked me, what's your favorite Bible verse? Mine is an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Listen, whatever this guy did, maybe the only recourse is you do it back to him. This guy literally created a Molotov cocktail and threw it at people to light them on fire, to kill them. It is a brutal, I can only imagine, be a brutal way to die, to be burned to death or to have to live with those burns. If anyone's ever been to Shriners or any of these other places that these people are impacted by fire, it's just a devastating thing to somebody. This guy should be held to the fullest extent of the law. And I'll tell you what, we don't have a CCOT here, a prison like they do in El Salvador, but there's a special place in hell for a person like this.
Yeah, rightly so. What about finally, Corey here, what about the people that allowed this? Because Joe Biden and his team rubber stamped his visa, his work permit after overstaying his visa, after being here criminally. They wanted Mohammed, the terrorist, in the country to commit a flamethrower act of terrorism. What should befall that administration, either morally or legally?
Well, what is the accountability that we have for these people, right? I mean, look, when you go back and look at what Alejandro Mayorkas allowed to have happen, he lied to Congress and said he had no authority to prevent the border from being secured. What we will know and what your listeners and viewers will see here in just a couple of days, Benny, is the individuals that the Biden administration actually kept off the known suspected terror list, which was amazing, right? They were pressured to keep certain individuals who should have been placed on that list off of the list for political realities. And that is devastating to me. So that's going to come here in the very near future. The fact that political expedience allowed them for people who should have been placed on the list to be kept off the list. And clearly a guy like this who should have been on the list, who never should have been let into the country, they just turned their cheek. They turned a blind eye to him. They let these criminals pour into our country to continue to perpetrate crimes against Americans with zero legal resource. Listen, I was part of that team, the fake Russian narrative that had to testify 7 times in front of Congress, that was held accountable, that I never did anything wrong. When do these people be held accountable? When are they dragged before Congress to say, you are now personally liable for the things that you did while you were in government service because you allowed these crimes to, if not actually happen, you allowed the people to come into this country because you didn't follow the rules?
That's some bombshell stuff, Corey. I have to ask a follow-up. So you're saying that Alejandro Mayorkas hid the identities of terrorists that were entering the country? This seems like a massive crime.
Benny, I will tell you this, that in the next 48 hours, you will see a story, hopefully, that is going to come out. That is going to show that there were people who should have been placed on the known suspected terror list that were not placed on that list because of political pressure directly to the department that was signed off by the highest levels of government. It's stunning information to me that is just coming to us that goes to show you how broken the federal government system was under Biden and the fake auto pen and Alejandro Mayorkas and the entire administration who covered up people coming into this country or should have been watched and weren't because they had the political resources and the knowledge to go and talk to the right person. It's disgusting to me. And that's part of the reason our country's in such a mess. Luckily, we've got Donald Trump and his team coming in and fixing these things.
Corey, will there be charges on this? I mean, I can think of a number of charges that you could bring against the officials inside of the Biden administration, but this seems like a real bombshell. You've done decades in law enforcement. This is horrifying.
Well, I think the Department of Justice is going to have to look at this very closely. You know, my concern is that those leaders, those cabinet secretaries, those individuals in government probably have some type of immunity in their official government capacity, but that should not hold them without accountability. And we should make sure that Congress gets to investigate this, that we bring these people forward. Who was really running the government, Benny, is the question. Who was behind the auto pen? Was it Jill Biden? Was it somebody else? You know, and what we see now is every Democrat is coming out and they're saying, oh, Joe Biden was great when I saw him. He was great until the debate day. Give me a break. Everyone knew this was the worst cover-up since Watergate or even beyond that. And nobody's been held accountable. Not one person's been charged criminally. Not one person's been held to have to testify in front of Congress. And Joe Biden, we know, was not the president of the United States. So the real question was, who was making the decisions to let people like this into the country, and why aren't they being held accountable?
Yeah. Do you think that there were huge cartel payoffs? Do you think this was a massive criminal enterprise? Do you think people are getting paid off for this?
Look, I think this. I think the cartels know how to bring people into this country, and they had no opposition from the federal government. They were making billions and billions of dollars smuggling individuals in, human trafficking people. We saw male age, military age Chinese men pouring across the country with complete impunity, taking us over from within. It has been a true invasion of the United States of America. And it has been allowed to happen for the 4 years under the Biden administration because they didn't care about it. Either Joe didn't know about it or didn't want to stop it. Either way, someone should be held accountable for it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Corey, listen, just based, I'm sorry. If you allow me one more question, please. You brought up that they kept terrorists off the watch list. You've been working very closely with DHS, which oversees Secret Service. We learned in the Ryan Ralph filings that he was trying to smuggle in Afghani terrorists to kill Trump. He has a bunch of messages saying, hey, let's work with the cartels to smuggle a bunch of terrorists here and Stinger missiles to shoot Trump out of the sky. It's in the DOJ's filings. I'm sure you've seen this. You probably know so much more than we do about these multiple Trump assassinations. We can count at least 5 that I think would be considered like an assassin attempt on our president. Are we going to get full disclosures about Matthew Thomas Crooks, who he was working with, his emails, his text messages, his computers, his habits photos of his room. Are we going to get like full disclosures on this stuff so we can finally unpack like how the hell we almost went into civil war and we ended Western civilization with an on-air execution of our president?
You know, Benny, I think it's very clear that there's been a lot of shenanigans that have transpired, not just in the last 4 years, but in the last 4 decades, that the government has covered things up because they didn't think the American people had the right to know. And what I believe is that providing the information to the American people is the best solution. And by the way, let's hold people accountable. You know, what we heard at the Butler rally was that the Secret Service couldn't communicate with the local PD, who couldn't communicate with the county PD. And we're going to put in some new standard operating procedures to fix that. We had a president of the United States, the leading candidate for president, shot in the head by what they told us was a lone gunman whose body disappeared in 15 seconds, Benny. Okay? The body was gone in 15 seconds. They had power wash the roof. Jesus, you can't get anything done that quickly. And all of a sudden it's done, and there's nothing here to follow up on, and we'll write a report to Congress. Let me tell you something. I know that President Trump, Kash Patel, Secretary Noem, and everybody else in the IC community wants to get the answers. And I'll tell you, Tulsi Gabbard has done a great job on this of pushing people to release information because the American people have the right to know, to make sure it never transpires again. So I believe in full transparency, and I hope that every agency that's been involved in any of these cover-ups is held accountable to the fullest extent of the law, because we saw Lisa Page and Schrock, right, the two lovers at the FBI, trying to single-handedly take down Donald Trump, and only because of the work of Kash Patel and Devin Nunes in the House and others were we able to uncover that. And the FBI is a better place because Kash Patel is there.
Yeah, I mean, we have this photo of Matthew Thomas Crooks on his phone right before he shot Trump. It's like we've never seen this phone. Do you have any idea what this phone is? Do you have any idea what all this evidence is? Who has it? Is it Tulsi?
Look, I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure someone in the IC community has this. Yeah. But Benny, it raises a serious issue. Okay, how is it that we have the premier law enforcement organization in the world protecting the most important people of the world, and we still haven't seen a full report on what transpired at Butler 1 or at the golf course, you know, in Florida? So look, they're saying that there's nothing to see here, and that may be the case. But full transparency to the government, from the government, I think is absolutely accountable, and it puts people at ease to make sure that they know, the American people know, that our president is safe on all occasions.
Wow. So you're saying that they were trying to like just sweep it under the rug and say, oh, we cleaned it all up before you guys got into the office.
Well, it seemed to be that the previous administration didn't want to share any of that information, as you know. And so they had no interest in actually telling us what was transpiring at that Butler 1 rally.
Wow. You know, there was DNA on the cocaine at the White House, Corey. Boy, they sure did destroy that evidence too.
Next on my list, Benny, you took the words right out of my mouth. How is it? Look, the truth is,
Corey,
if there was hunters, he would have just smuggled it in like he smuggled everything else in through his nose. But so somebody actually left their cocaine in the locker and left it over the weekend. So I don't understand how that happened. And nobody's been arrested. Nobody's been held accountable. No one has gone to jail for it. And look, Benny, privately, as you know this, right? We had a purse snatching in our department that was pretty high profile. That took a week to figure out who the culprit was. Happened to be, as I know you're going to be shocked by this news, a person who was in the country illegally. Go figure.
Go figure. At least you didn't have a flamethrower this time. Goodness gracious. What a mess. We're so thankful. Like we often say this on the program, there is no greater hive of scum and villainy than the mess that had to be cleaned up at DHS. And we're so thankful for you and your team and Secretary Noem for going in and just like cracking skulls. And I know there's a lot more work still to do, and we're here to give you air cover, man. Thank you, Corey, for all of your work. Everybody has to follow Corey here. He's got 600,000 subscribers on X, on to 1 million. Make sure they were fighting with the people who are fighting for you, Corey Lewandowski.
Thank you.
Godspeed. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what's jangling around? Corey Lewandowski, high energy. He probably doesn't need caffeine. He's been high energy ever since our first times getting to know him way back in like 2015. I though need to make sure that my cup is often filled. And this is iced coffee this morning. Gone through, don't check with my wife, but I've gone through probably a whole pot. That's right, it's up at 6 a.m. Grinding, ladies and gentlemen. You want to make sure that you are set and ready to go, that you have the energy to fight the communists. In order to do that, you have to have, for me, caffeine. A lot of Americans drink caffeine, but a lot of Americans, especially people on our side, if we're going to talk about culture and cancellation here, continue to fund coffee companies that hate you, that are run out of Seattle, that are run by Marxists, that push the most toxic of progressive and radical causes on you and your children and directly into their garbage products. Don't do that. Blackout Coffee for me. Blackout Coffee made right here in the great state of Florida. Blackout Coffee fills our cup and powers our show. Blackout Coffee is created, stocked, staffed, roasted, shipped, and packaged to you 100% by Americans, by a team of veterans, by people who love their nation. Make sure that you are supporting those kind of people, ladies and gentlemen. Their facility here in Florida is immaculate. I've seen it myself. It's an awesome company. I truly believe in it. If you believe in hard work and American values and coffee that actually tastes like coffee, go to blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Use Benny for 20% off your order. Support the American dream. Drink Blackout Coffee. blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Drink real coffee. Really quickly here, I want to Corey sort of touched on it, but I want to say that I voted for this. This is a Democrat staffer getting arrested. Jerry Nadler's office. ICE stormed into, well, as DHS police stormed into Jerry Nadler's office while there was a protest going on in New York. Jerry Nadler decided not to hide the rioters in his belt line, which is immense and could absolutely have hidden the rioters, but instead decided to hide them or smuggle them into his office, and ICE crashed into that office in order to arrest the rioters. Turns out that Jerry Nadler's staff started fighting with the cops, seems to be a trend here, and they got arrested. Federal officers handcuffed an aide to Jerry Nadler, Democrat from New York, in his Manhattan office on Wednesday, as the incensed congressman is pointing fingers at Donald Trump instead of his staff, who are criminals. When the U.S. Department of Homeland Security officers entered the office and handcuffed an aide who accused staffers of harboring rioters, the Gotham Mist reported on Friday. In new video footage of the incident, one person is heard saying, "No, she did not. That's not what happened," while the officer handcuffed an aide who appears to be crying. She pushed him back, the officer says. This would be, obviously, resisting arrest and interfering with an arrest. And you just can't do that anymore. Again, this ideology and this worldview is going to come crashing down. It's going to come to a humiliating and embarrassing and crashing end. Here's our salt for the day. Let's get our salt that lib on here for our clip, because there's so much salt that is pouring down from this clip. Because the staffer is wailing and shrieking and crying as she's being handcuffed. She thought you just do whatever you want. You just do things, right? Well, for the last, decade in this country, you probably could if you were a lib, you're part of the protected party and protected class. But that ain't the country anymore. We've changed things forever. Ladies and gentlemen, an on-air salt that lib, as this lib is crying literal salty tears. Let's replenish their sodium. Here we go.
No, she did not. That is not what happened.
That is not what happened.
Fuck.
Okay.
What?
Hold on a second.
Give me your contact information right
No,
now.
I'm going to give you time to speak to you.
Hey.
That's what I'm going to
Speak to
do.
you after. We got you.
No.
We got you.
You're
okay.
I don't have to.
You're okay. You're okay. You're going to be okay.
I'm a federal officer. We're here checking on something. We have the right to check. I'm
Can I
giving
see a
you.
warrant?
I'm not resisting. Stop resisting. You harboring rioters in the office. So there's not a problem. Let's walk inside. Let's walk through.
For what?
Let me see what's in here. Let's go. Come on.
Real tough. Real tough. These libs, you check them online. You see them. No one's louder in the comment section. And then they get cuffed. And then you see what they're really made of. Man. It is certainly a trying time. It's definitely something that we want to keep our heads on a swivel in these times. The morning reports this morning is that, will there be peace in our time? Well, to have a peaceful and safe nation, you have to have strong borders. A nation that does not have strong borders is Ukraine. Ukraine wipes out dozens of Russia doomsday nuclear bombers in massive surprise attack at air bases, Kyiv says. Russian Pearl Harbor. This isn't good. We don't want escalation in this region. We want de-escalation and we want peace. That is the official stance of this show. Stop bombing the world into oblivion. These tiles of wars have the propensity to kick off World War III. We don't want that. That would be catastrophic for the Trump administration. We don't want American troops on the ground. We don't want more forever wars. This is how our country is $26 trillion in debt, and more importantly, losing the greatest treasure of this nation, which are the fine young men and women that get buried deep into the soil of foreign lands. Enough of that. So we want the end to this conflict. Ukraine is acting insane and is launching the largest drone attack in the history of the world, apparently without telling Donald Trump. This is not going to help. So we want to pray for the victims of the terror attack. We want to pray for peace here. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the update.
Good morning. President Trump told me on Friday he thinks both Putin and Zelensky are stubborn. And then we were told yesterday that President Trump was actually given no heads up during the year and a half of planning by Ukraine for these complex drone strikes against Russian long-range bombers at various airfields, where kamikaze one-way drones were smuggled into Russia on trucks hidden in the ceilings of mobile wooden cabins. They were doing all of that. They never told the United States.
Great. It's going to end well. Enough. I've got a belly full of this. Everybody's sick of it. Everyone's sick of this. Come to terms. Come to the peace table. No one's going to win this. Russia's not going to win. Ukraine's not going to win. It's going to be a disaster for everyone. Speaking of winning, big time victory yesterday in Poland, which is awesome. Trump-backed candidate Nawrocki wins Poland's presidential election. I gotta have Posobiec on to get me some of these pronunciations of these names. But it is a very good thing. They flew in Barack Obama, Alex Soros, and Applebaum, all of the deep state plotters, in order to try and stage another Ukrainian-style coup here in Poland, and it didn't work. It failed. The Conservative won Poland's weekend presidential runoff election, according to the final vote count. Shocking, because these vote counts always just go like the beep. Yeah, at the very end, right? Wait till they find all of the. Trust me, they're going to find batches of new ballots. I assure you. Yeah, so they're going to try. The race had Poland on edge since first round of voting in 2 weeks, revealing deep divisions along the eastern flank of NATO and the European Union. Early exit poll released Sunday evening suggested that the Liberal was headed to victory. Oh, so fake polls too? Got it. Again, they trotted in Barack Obama and the Soroses in order to try and rig this thing. Here's President Trump. And the victor, Nawrocki, on Monday, won. He won with 51% of the vote. I think that margin has expanded. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I saw earlier return numbers. I fought for us to build a strong, safe, and honest and empathetic Poland together, he wrote on X. This is the loser. Okay, got it. Because I was like, why would he be saying empathetic? No, that is absolutely not. That is coded language from the left. This is a massive win for America First. It's a massive win for populism around the world and nationalism. And if you don't practice nationalism, you won't have a nation for long. Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, joining our program right now are experts in human trafficking, experts in how Muhammad, the terrorist, may have gotten into this country, but how many other terrorists have gotten into the country. It's an entire ecosystem, an entire architecture. Like 20 million criminal aliens from the third world who are relatively penniless don't just wind up in El Paso. Somebody has to build that structure. That structure has to have massive capacity. Joining us now, some experts on how to shut down that capacity and the evils entwined within it are Dr. Jared Sadulski and Ali Hopper. Thank you so much for joining our program, Ali and Jared. Welcome.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
So please explain to me what the system of getting 20 million criminal aliens into our country, what does that system look like? Like, how did that happen? Because, the federal government is having a real problem moving 20 million people out of the country. I doubt they'll ever even come close. So how did 20 million people move into the country? That's quite a feat.
Well, actually, the answer to that question is very simple. It has to do a lot with the previous administration, the Biden-Harris administration. Opening the floodgates to our borders is what caused this to happen. Now, we've had problems with our immigration system. We have to review our immigration system, our processes, visa status, asylum procedures. But really, when you open the borders and it is free reign for anyone to come in, vetted or not, that is what created this problem.
Yes, and that coupled with the last administration tying the hands of Border Patrol, when Allie and I spent time on the border, it was just a constant flow of people coming in. Border Patrol was not actually at the border. They were down the road waiting for people to approach them. We actually approached Border Patrol and told them, hey, there's migrants coming through. And they said, oh, we're going to wait for them to approach us. And migrants refer to Border Patrol as migrant Uber.
Yes, we were able to witness that. It was astonishing and horrifying. This is like our tax dollars at work, smuggling, being part of the human smuggling chain, which is, prima facie one of the most immoral things I've ever seen.
Not just the smuggling chain, the human trafficking chain. When you had the unaccompanied children coming across the border and being processed through ORR with little to no meaningful vetting of not only the sponsors, but the children themselves. And then on taxpayer dollars, you ship these children over to unvetted sponsors, some of which are illegals themselves, some of which are criminals with background criminal rap sheets themselves. That's a direct reflection of the previous administration, and it is a stain on our country's history.
So
sorry.
Please.
I was just going to say the Trump administration now has to clean up this mess that they inherited.
What happened to all these missing children? I fear even asking because I think I have an instinct of what, but knowing the people that trafficked them. But yes,
we've talked to cartel members in prison in Central America that said that under the last administration, through their policies, that they saw a market that was developed to traffic children into the United States. We've often heard of the 480,000 unaccompanied migrant children that came in under the last administration. 324,000 of those are unaccounted for. Allie and I spoke to HSI, and HSI told us that they checked on the well-being of 100,000 of those 324,000 children that are unaccounted for, of which they located 5,000. That means 95,000 of these children are completely unaccounted for. And we discovered that 70% of the sponsor information that was accepted under the Biden-Harris administration was fraudulent.
You want to know how that happens, Benny? When a sponsor's requirements are so low that it is sufficient enough to send a picture of your identification through an app like WhatsApp with no facial matching or anything like that. We spoke to an HSI or a prior Border Patrol agent, and he said it actually took a lot more verification to adopt a dog from a shelter that was about to be euthanized than it is for a sponsor to take on a child. That's embarrassing.
So, it would be actually harder because the children don't have to work, right? So you just put them right into a school system. It would actually be harder to locate these children. They can also go by different names, right? And it's going to be like more difficult with a child to locate them. So is this part of what they were doing? Is there a darker purpose here?
Well, the ORR, the Office of Refugee Resettlement, under Health and Human Services under the prior administration, refused to share the information with state agencies. My partner here testified at the Senate roundtable, and next to him was DCF Secretary Siobhan Harris, and she had said that she was begging ORR to give her the information of these unaccompanied children, where they are, so they can conduct welfare checks, and they were being stonewalled. They were not allowed as state agencies to check on the welfare and the well-being of these children, so they don't even know if they're going to school. They don't know if they're being abused. They don't know if they're being cared for, and they don't know if they're still in the location that they were originally placed in.
And Benny, if I could share this with you. So the last administration was so incompetent that there was a hotline set up called Notice of Concern hotline through Health and Human Services. And this hotline was designed for these unaccompanied children to report back if they're being trafficked, if they're being neglected, if they're being abused. Between August of 2023 to the inauguration, 65,000 calls were received to that hotline that weren't answered. And when the current administration went in and started listening to these calls, some of the children were complaining about stale bread, but some were saying that strange men are touching them, that they're being trafficked. It is so ridiculous that in the last administration that a caseworker actually went out into the field to where an unaccompanied migrant child was going to be sent, spoke to the sponsor, who was adorned in MS-13 tattoos, who, in addition, there were other members in the household that appeared to be gang members. This Office of Refugee Resettlement case agent went back, told their leadership that we're sending this child to a home that has MS-13 tattoos. That case agent was overridden. That child was sent to that home. 3 months later, that child was found dead with his pants by his ankles and an adult male passed out next to him. That's how bad it was.
So this is some Epstein level stuff. This is just sadistic. So some of the stuff is just purely sadistic.
Absolutely.
Encouragement based on like demonic and sadistic child predation.
Yeah, and the incarcerated traffickers, cartel members that we've spoken to, they praised the previous administration. They actually used our programs and services as transportation hubs to be able to transport these children. And they said, well, there's a demand in your country. We will provide the supply. And with the transportation channels that we provided, it created more of a market. So I feel horrible for this administration. Trump and his team have a overwhelming task of not only finding these unaccompanied children, but getting out the bad actors and the criminals that are in here. And I mean, there was the situation that happened yesterday with that Egyptian national.
Yeah, Mohammed wasn't supposed to be here, and he was given an award by the Biden administration for being here. He was given a special work permit that he didn't even ask for to make sure that he could use a flamethrower against peaceful protesters underneath a Pride Progress flag, which is quite the image. The image, truly the image of Pride Month right here. Okay, so you're a criminologist. You've got 2 decades of experience under your belt, doctor. Could people be charged for this? Should there be a slew of charges that are clearly this is illegal? You can't just neglect children like this if you're the federal government.
Absolutely. There has to be accountability. The current administration needs to go in and hold accountable all of those people that were in that chain that knew that these children were being trafficked. A lot of the government employees at the time that worked for Health and Human Services, they enriched themselves by going and working for the NGOs that were part of the trafficking process of these children. They knew what was going on, and they need to be held accountable.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're saying that there was like a pipeline for people to go from DHS or Border Patrol, go work at these NGOs. Like Jill Biden was on the board of Save the Children, which was under investigation for human trafficking. Jill Biden was on their board. So you're saying that that's the pipeline, that's the payoff pipeline. So they'd go work for the NGOs and get rich.
Absolutely.
How do you shut down these NGOs? What should happen next?
Right. So Doge, has had a good run at addressing these issues with these NGOs. Allie and I did some research into some of these NGOs, and we found out things like the neglect that they were doing to these children. In one case, an NGO in Pecos, Texas, had an employee that was standing on top of a picnic bench teaching migrant girls between 13 and 17 how to dance provocatively. And he dressed them in provocative clothing. And this was allowed to happen. He actually did it twice before he was terminated.
And what was crazy about that story is that the auditor that reported that up the chain through this NGO, she was let go. So not only was this employee terminated, and now our last known location was that he works at Disney, but the auditor that reported this bad, horrific behavior was let go.
Okay, so the human trafficking, the federal government, border protections, to human trafficking NGOs, to Disney pipeline. Maybe should I amend that?
So I wouldn't necessarily say Border Patrol. We're really placing the blame on Office of Refugee Resettlement. When they have a hotline that receives 65,000 calls that go unanswered, I mean, that's beyond neglect. That's corruption.
And the Border Patrol, unfortunately, had an impossible task. They were told time and time again under the previous administration, the Biden-Harris administration, to stand down, to do as they're told, don't ask any further questions. There was a Border Patrol agent that we spoke to that was actually concerned about an unaccompanied child that he encountered, tried to follow up, made a call to the sponsor, found there was questionable, stuff going on with that sponsor, and was told to stand down. So unfortunately, these Border Patrol agents were between a rock and a hard place.
That same Border Patrol agent explained to us that he came across a child that was coming through the border with two adults. He suspected that those adults were not the child's parents, which is very common. The cartel would often pair up children with people that are coming into the United States, and then they claim that they're related to the child when they're not. Well, this particular child had visible injuries. So following policy, he took this child to the hospital. He was informed at the hospital that this child had been raped. He had no choice under the previous administration to hand that child back to the people that he believed were exploiting her.
You have to charge the individuals who do. I mean, you have to make examples of this. It's evil. There's no other way to describe it. It's hard to listen to. It makes my skin crawl as a father of four. Allie, you're a Christian, and you have sort of a spiritual sense about you in the way that you view the world. How much of this is just fighting the forces of darkness? And, how much of this is just dark versus light in this border battle?
The whole battle against good and evil. I mean, this is it. This is the time when people need to decide whether they're going to stand up. When you take an issue like protecting children, and if that's not something that can get you out of your seat and get you to support this administration, knowing that they are setting up task forces to combat human trafficking, knowing that they're setting up groups to go find these unaccompanied children, knowing that they're trying to get bad actors, cartel members, and pedophiles that are illegally here out of this country. If you can't see that, and you can't see everything that this administration is doing to protect children, then I don't know what else is going to wake you up. Our children are our most precious gift. And like you said, Benny, you have 4 kids. I have kiddos. Jared has kids. We do this to protect the children. It's a nonpartisan issue, but we're going to call out whoever is in the wrong, whether they're on the left or the right. And right now, the Biden-Harris administration exacerbated this problem, created a pipeline. We have missing children. Like we said, we have criminal cartel members and pedophiles roaming the streets. And this administration has to work hard to clean it up.
Yeah, they're literal demons, and you need to fight them with spiritual power as much as you fight them with physical power.
But Benny, to your point, the one thing that's very concerning is that the cartel members did mention that the United States has the highest demand for this market. So we need to actually do a deep dive, morally, spiritually, to try and understand why. Why is the U.S. the highest buyer, the highest in demand for this commodity, for humans, for both sex and labor? Why? Across the world. So we need to ask ourselves that question.
Yeah. Well, the intel agencies said Jeffrey Epstein belongs to us. Let him out of jail for child predation. So there's your answer. Ladies and gentlemen, Allie and Jared, they founded Guard Against Trafficking. Make sure that you support them. Here's their website right here. Here's Allie and Jared's social media. They're doing God's work, and it's a tough conversation to have. But when there are criminal aliens that are lighting people on fire with flamethrowers. Like, have we had enough? Have we had enough? Yeah. Thank you so much for fighting in this dark arena. That's where we need light the very most. Thank you, Allie and Jared.
Thank you.
Thank you, Benny.
Goodness gracious. You know, sometimes it's like you just don't want to see things, and it's hard enough to just like look sort of into the heart of darkness. You just don't need that on a Monday morning. But given the subject matter of today's show, you just gotta stare. You just gotta look and say, well, if I don't fight it, if I do nothing, and I don't fight it, and we don't talk about it, then it's like it doesn't exist. That would be the goal. The end goal for evil is to go on unabated, to be the cockroaches in the kitchen in the darkness. That's the end goal. They don't want the attention. They don't want you to talk about it. They don't want you to look at it. They want all this Diddy stuff to go away. They don't want it to be a broader conspiracy. Where are the RICO charges in the Diddy case? What the hell are the RICO charges? What's the government doing? What is James Comey's daughter doing? It's a cover-up operation. They don't want you to know that they were funding this kind of stuff. And it's a marketplace, as they just described very darkly. It's a marketplace. And without buyers, you don't have a product. So it's human smuggling, child smuggling, and trafficking. It's a marketplace. These people are sadistic demons, and we have to shut it down, and we have to like look evil in its face and punch back, ladies and gentlemen. If you're talking about a company that does a lot of punching back, and that punch back against probably the wokest industry that there is, which is the technology and services industry in this nation, that is like the patient zero of wokeness. Tech companies, broadband companies, the Verizons of the world. There's only one service that we would trust at this program to not only keep us online in the darkest days of censorship and platform in the darkest days of censorship, but also to make sure that we have stable and solid connections, because we are out rocking and rolling and telling stories all around the country, and that's Patriot Mobile, of course. Patriot Mobile is who we trust on this program to stay locked in. You've heard me talk about them a lot. That's because I believe in them, because they've been a friend and an ally of the show for a very long time, and their products are excellent. They have unlimited data plans, mobile hotspots, international roaming, internet on-the-go devices, and home internet backup that we use, actually, in this program, as a massive storm was rolling through during this program, and everyone's looking around nervously like, is power going to go out? We hate it. We have a reinforced backup system in the studio, thank God. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you should have backup in your back pocket with Patriot Mobile today. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny or call 972-PATRIOT, and right now use the promo code Benny to get a free month of service when you sign up. Switch to Patriot Mobile and defend freedom with every single call or text that you make. patriotmobile.com/Benny or call 972-PATRIOT. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have some exciting announcements for the rest of this week. We're going to be doing a little bit of travel. We're firming it up right now. We're going to be working very closely with the president and his administration on America 250, the celebration of America's 250th birthday anniversary, something that Donald Trump said he needed to run for president for. He needed to be president for the World Cup, the Olympics, and America 250. And our girl, Monica Crowley, is now in the chair. She's in the chair. She got confirmed last week. She's going to be joining our show this week. She's in charge of all of this, and it's going to be a rowdy. It's going to be a rowdy romp, and more importantly, we want to make sure that we are taking back our culture, which is what this is all about. We want to make sure we're fighting and we're winning for your kids and for mine against the people who are after our kids. You know what I mean? If you want to help us win, please go here to this QR code, download or subscribe and download, actually, to our podcast RSS feed. This ensures that we are able to have stable, constant, and solid growth on all of our platforms. We're able to reach you in these times that are, again, pretty wild. Culture is changing, man. Culture is changing. It's truly something else. please lock in with us and make sure that you are a part of a show that will give you the good news every single day, winning every single day on this program through our verse of the day, Psalms 34. I'm glad it's the Psalms because it's a dark show, man. Dark show. Glass half full, silver linings kind of guy. I hate these dark shows. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. I want a special prayer, please. Please get on your knees like I do and pray, in the quiet and small hours. I have that private time and that private prayer time. Pray for the victims of this terror attack. Some of them are nearly 90 years old. It is the darkened evil that we often talk about on this program that we are fighting against. Pray for those victims. They are brokenhearted. I'm sure their families are brokenhearted. Granny just left, right, to go try and free hostages from terrorists and then ended up getting burned by a terrorist. Allowed in here by Joe Biden. Ladies and gentlemen, they are crushed in spirit. We must pray for them and be sure that the Lord is close there. I wish you the very best on this Monday. And stiff upper lip, chip on our shoulder. Let's go freaking win. The victory is already ours. It's your boy Benny. See ya.
This land is my land. This land is not your land. I will stay in my land and you can stay in Thailand. Go back to Egypt. Go back to where you belong. This land was not made for you. It was made for me. This land is my land. This land is not your land. This land was not made for you. It was made for me.
Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salt in all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to life. Liberty to light, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light, bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salt in all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.